For those who've experienced spiritual abuse or whose minds don't fit the mould of dogmatic obedience, the quiet of the forest offers a different kind of refuge. My first instinct when I left Rigpa, the high-demand cult I was in, was to find refuge in the silence of the forest. And many others in the Beyond the Temple community also replaced the shrine room with nature. It was such a relief to simply sit in the forest without having to follow a form, read a text, or navigate the dynamics of a community that was more concerned with their own reputation than with their students' being. What I found was that immersing myself in nature didn't only bring solace, it grounded my recovery from religious trauma and gave me a way to still honour my spiritual nature without the weight of obedience to something external from myself, especially someone I could no longer trust. After leaving the religion, I needed to come to something pure, uncomplicated, and unburdened by dogma. And I had to take back agency over my own spiritual life. I had to learn to genuinely take refuge in my own true nature. Now, bear with me here while I compare the teachings on refuge to the reality of life in some sanghas. I'm going into this to show you why, even within the Buddhist teachings themselves, it's important for us to learn to trust our own inner wisdom. Buddhism teaches us that we all have Buddha nature and that this Buddha nature is our true nature. But we don't realize our true nature because it's obscured by habits, emotions, concepts, and karma. Though Buddhists outwardly take refuge in the Buddha, his teachings, and the community of practitioners, our ultimate refuge is in our own Buddha nature. The Buddha taught this in the Mahavana Sutta. Dwell within yourself as your own island, with yourself as your own refuge, take no other refuge. That's the teaching. However, when it comes to Tibetan Buddhism, the teachings on devotion to the master, who is supposed to inspire your journey inwards, can very easily turn into an outwardly focused journey of obedience to a teacher. When devotion is touted as the ultimate path, we can end up taking refuge in the outer teacher and not in our own inner wisdom, nature, true nature of mind, whatever you want to call it. There are many words for it. But we don't find it if we focus on the outer teacher. And the major cult dynamic that enables abuse is unconditional surrender to the personality of the teacher. And unfortunately, you will find in some Tibetan circles that this is what they are demanding. External authorities such as cult leaders demand conformity over authentic experience. Authentic experience was to some extent devalued in Rigpa. If insights were asked for, your genuine expression of your experience was either completely disregarded or belittled unless you used actual language from the scriptures, and then you were just quoting a scripture, not describing your own experience. Of course, that made some of us second guess our genuine insights. So I felt I needed to offload all of that baggage and see what was left, find what was real without any dogmatic overlay. So when we leave a cult of devotion, we need to find our own autonomy again for both psychological and spiritual health. But finding our way when we've been following a path that was all laid out for us isn't easy. How know where to go with our spiritual life when what we believed in and trusted has all fallen away? And how do we develop trust in ourselves after having put our trust in a teacher and a community who proved ultimately unworthy of it? And of course, I can't answer those questions for anyone other than myself, but I found that practicing presence, just sitting quietly and simply being me in natural spaces where no one was watching or judging or demanding, was incredibly healing. It reaffirmed the validity of my own experience, and out of the stillness of the forest and the awareness it naturally invokes, I found my way forward. And out of this came an intense gratitude for the natural world, and particularly the forest. The forest teaches without words, without expectations or demands. It teaches by its very presence. All we have to do is visit a forest as often as we can. Simply be and simply listen. Has nature been a support for your spiritual path, particularly if you're healing from spiritual abuse? If so, let me know in the comments how that happened for you. And me, well, I've taken to doing more than just sitting and being in the forest. I like to dance my gratitude and appreciation while singing a mantra that calls on the power of great awareness.